I think there are now over a couple hundred pieces of artwork in our collection, not including
many.
Yeah, no. I've been cataloging. We've been cataloging them, and that doesn't really include what I call artifacts and vintage furniture.
That's right.
There's another 150 pieces.
Curio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, we're
I guess you're right.
hoarders of things.
And it wasn't intentional at all. It just started, and somehow, well, somebody said this to us, our dear and lovely friend Veronique at the David Werner Gallery in New York, and she says, this is quite an interesting collection because I don't see I don't see an obvious direction or a purpose in terms of being a collector of art. This is very personal, this collection. And because we started, when we were kids, we started collecting art, little drawings and that when we were, just graduating.
Go ahead.
No, I said over a period, it sort of evolved, and I realized that all these things, there is some sort of thread. I'm not sure what thread. There's a few threads, and then I think you mentioned something before, that the personal thing. It's very. I'll say that again. Veronique said the juxtapositions are interesting, and there's not a singular thread in the theme, but it is you and Glenn. I don't know what that means.
Well, we didn't focus on a point of time of art, the abstract period, or we didn't focus on photography, or we didn't focus on whatever.
Yeah.
It was our collection really came from our heart, or what we see in our soul, whatever spoke to us. And some art that we collected were reminiscent of a time when we were young, and we admired people, and we experienced the same things at the same time, whether it's the period of Mapplethorpe or Warhol, or in that era when we would be young and drive to New York because we had no money, and we stayed at the Chelsea Hotel, and you kind of gravitate to some of the art that we gravitate to is gives us back fond memories. Other times we collect, it's more spontaneous. We were down in Mexico City in the holiday period last year, and we went to the Kunimazotto Gallery in Mexico City, a wonderful gallery. We really hadn't explored Mexican artists or Latin artists to any great extent, but we just saw half a dozen wonderful pieces of unknown artists that we loved.
Yeah.
And but it was like Christmas time. We'll take that, and that.
Well, the one way of looking at value, you can say you can't put in, let's say, a number to it or a numerical value to it, because those things, when we bought, we acquired a Cindy Sherman, for example, or something, we lived that time, and so the value was that connection to her self-portraits, and to talk about it to our designers, our design team. It really resonates with them because we can talk about her work and putting it maybe an installation in our projects, but we sort of live that era, the Windows on the World. That photograph.
Philip Lorca de Corsa.
Yeah. And Philippe de Lorca de Corsa, we were there at Windows on the World before, collapsed, So it was really, the value is much greater than acquiring it and owning it.
I think nostalgia is one thing, or twigging a memory, or living from an era. But I think also there's other reasons for us, the reason that cause us to collect. I mean, our friend Veronique at Zwerner introduced us to Wolfgang Tillmans, and we just fell in love with his work because it talks about his life, it talks about his politics, it talks about his sexuality, all kinds of things that were super fascinating with us, and we were just felt a connectivity to it. So it can be many different reasons. Kusama, we weren't really big known as art collectors at that time, but this Werner Gallery said, let's invite more interesting people to our opening. So
rather than a typical art collector.
So Georgie went, I was away, and Yayoi opens the door to her limousine, and she looks around at the crowd, and she takes a beeline for the one Japanese-looking person there to George, so we kind of, I think you built a connection, and
at that very moment.
of course we fell in love with her work. I mean, and the next day we bought a painting, and then later we commissioned a pumpkin, but we were down in Mexico again. This was another time when we saw, sorry, Georgie, we saw some of her early work, which we're totally taken by, and we're hoping one day to get early. I don't know, it's something we just got, just moved into.
We like what informs an artist, to know about their personal background, what moved them, what made them, do what they did. And that's what's interesting about what you're saying about her early work.
No, we don't consciously go out to be collective. We don't consciously, we just go to look at art and see and feel what we like or we don't like. And we're sporadic buyers of art, like we're sporadic buyers of furniture or whatever.
We don't buy furniture, a piece of furniture or an object or art. Oh, because that's going to be valuable one day. No. It's not that perch at all.
I remember.
It has to have a personal connection. It has to inspire. It has to inform me so that I can do the same to other people, our clients, and to our our team of designers.
It was early on in Miami Art Basel, and we were at that. It was earlier in maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, earlier in Anish Kapoor's fame as an artist, and there was a black lacquer dish that he made that was made in Japan for him out of black lacquer. Incredibly beautiful. It's funny, these long, clear architectural corridors, which we thought about that for hotels and the Edition hotels, which we were working on with Ian Schrager, and we were showing Ian our dish and the juxtaposition. All of a sudden, he was putting faux inspired by Anish Kapoor dots at the end of Edition hotels, which ended up everywhere. It was like, oh my gosh, please.
That's not what we wanted to explain to you, but anyway.
But it's it's funny. Somebody like Anish Kapoor, because it's so architectural, you kind of start dreaming about how to use that kind of very clear message in interiors. And
if I may, adding that, it was a jet. Well, we all heard about the story of Anish Kapoor. Is taking this black, the most purest for black, and copywriting or taking ownership of it, and it caused a stir in the art world by him coveting that and not allowing others access to it. Well, that must have been at the very beginning, because this large convex dish, when you stand in front of it,
it's so good.
You just stand when you just disappear in this jet black. Almost like a portal when you're standing there, and it's super black. It must have been the precursor to what he wanted, that intense.
And your image flips upside down.
That black, how you
so
can just
amazing.
go deep into it, and almost like another dimension. And so that he must have been obsessed with this black from the very beginning. This incredible void, and it's in our apartment in New York.
But I think that like whether sometimes you look at the colors or the patterns that Kusama uses, or you look at some of the wit behind some of the art, and it does inspire you to think differently.
I would say it's a challenge, but one thing I'd like to talk about for a minute, and you touched upon Glenn, that is Anish Kapoor's sister. We have a client. This is Anish Kapoor's cousin. This is later, much later before after.
This is great.
And he's going to do a project in Jerusalem, and it was a building that was originally an apartment building. That
it was where Golda Meir signed the papers.
So when the State of Israel was created in 1945, that's where the official state started, by signing of the papers to create the country of Israel. And so it has a very, very incredible historical past. It didn't happen because the metrics for, or I guess it was better for in terms of its viability, financial viability. It's better that it became condominiums, luxury condominiums, rather than a hotel. Unless we on a just we didn't think he would say yes, but why don't you ask your cousin if you would do a site-specific project
She was
in a
going
hotel?
to do.
And
The project was canceled.
and then Kapoor said yes, but the project was canceled, unfortunately. But that would have been incredible. Well, it's interesting. Glenn and I love about Anish Kapoor. And
Of course, we create art programs for our projects, and I think one of the most special art programs is at the Londoner, and some of the art is serious and some of the art is not serious, but it is curated, and it's tongue in cheek, and it talks
idea.
to being in London without being
Cheekiness.
being so straightforward, but you catch it.
Yeah.
And I think that it really does have a kind of special collection, as a kind of commercialized collection, but still really amazing in terms of how it's placed in the interiors, what the themes are throughout the hotel.
Yeah.
I think it's
yes,
I think it's one of the special
Yes,
ones.
we refuse to resort to
Hotelese.
installation of art just to fill a void. And about some other artists and architects, for instance, they were, I think, to have a feeling or a connected response or communicate thoughts and ideas to, say, a client through artists and their visions. We also like some artists that were not trained in art, or we admire architects who were not trained
famous.
as architects.
Or not famous.
Or not famous. But my point is, they were not in the discipline. I love the fact that, Tadao was not an architect, and he built this incredible structures. We design buildings, so we're not architects. And so I love this. I love this crossover. And all this crossover means a lot to explain how the world works through culture.
And we do storytelling in our work. I was thinking about, we find artists that resonate. They can be known or unknown. It doesn't really matter to us. I remember years ago going to see Tomio from Tomio Gallery in Japan, and he had this unknown artist with these little notepads and these drawings called Yoshitomo Nara, and they were like really inexpensive pictures.
Naive.
And I wanted to buy the book.
Right.
We wouldn't sell me
Right.
the book. It was clever not to, but he sold us two paintings as long as we would buy two drawings, and the paintings now have become super famous,
Yes.
and they're going to Bilbao next year for whatever
On a retrospective of Yoshitomo Nara's work, and they asked us, would you be kind enough to loan them? Absolutely.
This is the second time.
Sort of resonates. My connection with art and artists is my background. I didn't realize that.
Right.
It's just sort of percolating right now. Is that, my father was an incredible craftsman, woodworker in Japan, and he had the incredible honor of building. They picked the best craftsman from each prefecture. They call it prefecture in Japan, or state or province. And they chose the best craftsman to build the Meiji Shrine in the middle of a park in Tokyo. It's called the Meiji Shrine. And it was, when he built it, was destroyed during World War II. And it went up in flames, and they carefully, meticulously rebuilt it back the way it was. Of course, my father by then immigrated to Canada. It was either Brazil or Canada. I could have been half Brazilian. He chose Canada, Vancouver, actually. And I think that connection of craft and artistic utility, it was really informed me. So when I was thinking about the pieces about that young artist with the granite, it was
from Japan.
It was Japanese stone cutting technique and carving, and so I think it really has that sense of craft connects me to the artists who make these creations that we collect.
I think going back to And it's interesting. Also, my family were craftspeople. My grandmother was weaver. My grandfather
Yes.
was a leather tooler. And we started doing, asked by Salvatore to do sculptural pieces based on villages and stuff. And that really did inform us, his work, those little pieces, those little sculptures we did.
Oh, yeah.
And then 3 years later, working now with CC Tapi, we're doing designing impossible buildings, which are a riff on those little buildings we did, and a riff on Anish's thing. And we're kind of pushing those ideas further. I think what art gives us is an understanding of life full of possibilities, and taking ideas and keeping moving them forward. And that's what artists do when they do well in their thought process.
Yes.
And I think that especially with products, because they are three-dimensional forms, or carpets, which are two-dimensional forms, and you want to push your creativity. And I think that there are certain artists that inspire that, and it's like Anish, especially because he's more architectural.
I don't even know if they're
sweet.
persons or up. It looked like, I call them sperm boys.
Yeah.
It's like, they're like that, the shape of sperm, and you just see this line, an arc, and
his
it's
the
just
eyes light up
urinating.
like a beacon.
But it's so innocent. It sounds really, but they're so innocent looking and childlike, like his work. But there's an irony when you look at Yoshitomo Nara's work in the childlike, the little girls, but they're innocent, but they're sort of looking at you, and there's a little there's a tension in there, and there's a lot going on in the mind of that girl and his subject matter. And same with these sperm boys. They're just naive, but they're kind of, what the hell are they doing? But it's not distasteful at all by any means.
It's sweet.
But
They're going to the
what was
Bilbao.
great was they're going to the Bilbao because he rarely paints. He draws on paper. So it's one of his few pieces that he's done on canvas.
Oh.
And so I think that's one of the reasons that was inspired. Whoever the curator is putting the show together in Bilbao, I think they have to have those pieces in the collection.
Number two is that who is it? Okay, Simone Gavina, which was a furniture maker in Italy from the 70s, did a limited series of furniture with artists.
Surrealism, based on surrealism.
Based on surrealism. So we have an ottoman, which is a big eye that flops down to an ottoman, and we have the mirror Les Grands Transparents, which somebody wrote on a mirror. We have the bum chair, which is a bum that sits on the edge. But the most incredible piece is this chair. Who is the artist? He cast this brass chair. It looked like an animal with legs. It was owned. There was 4 or 6 of them made. Anyway, there was one that was owned by a furniture importer in Canada, and it was in his personal collection. They went to the Royal Ontario Museum for a while on loan and stuff, and we coveted this chair, and it took us years and years to convince him to sell it to us. It's now living in our apartment in New York. Who is the artist? But it feels like it is. It has got a little back and a big creature. No, it's a wraparound back with a little creature leg things on it. Super cool.
With the textile fabric, but it looks like it's inviting you to sit in it.
Yeah.
You're not sure if it's sit-onable.
And we were talking to Rebecca, the daughter of the father that we bought it from, and they said when they were kids they would take the upholstery out with the cast bronze base, and they would have Halloween candy in it for the children. That's a good story. What's number?
That is incredible.
Okay, that's a great piece.
That's a great piece.
What's number 3 now?
That's number 3.
Yeah.
I think I like that tree.
Oh, the tree is so
the one that I was talking
sweet.
about.
It's the newest.
Yeah.
It's got a little
it looks like
arm that looks like somebody broke off.
It's granite, gray granite,
And it
artists
curves up like this.
And
Little
carving. It
hand
looks
thing.
like a cactus plant. And it has this hand reaching out to you.
Yeah, it's
like
super
a paw.
great.
And it just, beckons you. It's like...
We start on a project. It could be glass or ceramics or something. It could be anything. And then all of a sudden we're like, look, going through our houses and things, and oh, here's something to inspire. Here's something to inspire. Let's think about this
amazing
way.
Source. It's like a
You're sourcing your own stuff.
Like it's like an I wouldn't call it a museum. It sounds too exalted, but our 2 residents, anyway, 3 residents, which is an amazing resource. A center of resources for our industrial designers and designers.